What's up, everyone? I know that me and Ed Brotherton did a response video to people that were in Jean Laratonda's 9/11 war room 2 days ago. And in this video, I specifically want to address Adam Eisenberg, an alleged first responder at the Pentagon on September 11th, 2001. He made a lot of ludicrous statements, some that didn't even make sense. And I want to address those with my own thoughts and really respond in depth to each and every one of them. And I'm going to be cordial in this video. I don't need to call names or anything like that. I'm just going to use the evidence against his statements. And it's about 27 minutes long. So Adam Eisenberg, for those who don't know him, he says he was at the Pentagon on September 11, 2001. He was a member of the Old Guard Army's regiment. And he came in late afternoon to help in the search and rescue or the cleanup portion of the attack. His overall statements are this: he doesn't know what happened at the Pentagon, but what he does know is that a plane didn't crash there because, according to him, he didn't see any plane debris or smell jet fuel. But we're going to let his own words speak for themselves because I don't want to put words in his mouth. So let's see what Adam Eisenberg has to say.
For those of you who don't know, my name is Adam Eisenberg. I spent 240 hours on site between September 11th to the 30th. I'm also likely the only person on site that has any experience with airplane parts.
Now, this is a rather ignorant statement to make. There were over 3,000 people that were there in the days preceding the event. But there were hundreds of people that arrived on site from a number of agencies: Fort Belvoir Search and Rescue, Montgomery County Search and Rescue, the FBI, FEMA, and then you had Arlington County Fire Department, Fort Myer Fire Department, Fort Belvoir Fire Department, Ronald Reagan International Airport Fire Department. We're talking about the Pentagon here. They would know what a plane part would look like. And by the way, he's not being, you know what? He's not being genuine here. All right. Now, when I spoke with him in a Zoom meeting, he once said that he worked for UPS at a Pratt and Whitney, I think, and that's how he can ascertain what a plane part looks like. But that came after he served in the military. So at this point, he had no experience with identifying plane debris. So this is not being genuine here. And he doesn't tell you this because he wants to make it seem that I was at the site and I could identify plane parts and I didn't identify any. Meanwhile, he didn't have that job until a couple years after 9/11.
I spent several months working as a high-level senior kind of official in a Pratt & Whitney facility, their #1 part storage facility. So I typically overlay those two experiences. My efforts into
Yeah, but you're not being honest again. You got that job after September 11, 2001, not before. So in other words, you couldn't identify plane parts on September 11, 2001 because you had no experience. And again, that's like saying nobody else could identify plane parts. Well, how do you know? How do you know that somebody couldn't identify a plane part when obviously there were people? that did.
Investigating this subject kind of grant me a little bit of a key that researchers don't have, being a person that spent extensive time on site. So I can knock on some doors that most researchers get ignored. And
No, you can't. You don't have any additional privileges that, say, myself doesn't have. You're a regular civilian. Yes, you were former military, but you have to go through the same channels as I do, because you don't have special privileges to look at anything secret, because you don't have a security clearance.
people don't talk to me, it can be considered a little weird. And in my efforts to get answers, I have basically uncovered an element that was on site, that had no authority to be there, that had the ability, the technical abilities and the capabilities and the know-how from a military black ops / CIA perspective. I have been investigating these people. These people are well aware that I am investigating them. I can say publicly that you know, these efforts have been going on for over a year now. So my efforts.
So you could say publicly that your efforts have been going on for some time. This doesn't make sense. It's not like you have classified information. I don't know what you're talking about, but you're trying to make yourself seem a lot more important than what you are. And, you know, it gives an air of almost narcissism to a point. I didn't want to say it, but very egotistical of you. Because you don't have any additional authority over a regular civilian at this point. Like I said, you don't have a security clearance. So you're not looking at any classified information. You're a regular civilian, just like me and everybody else watching this video.
Hopefully we'll come up with something that can be used in a court of law. I do admire the people that are out there that are trying to make 9/11 progress there. Ultimately,
yeah, there are certain people out there that are trying to get progress made, but you're not. You're hindering that. And this video is going to prove it. And I want to know why you're doing this, even though you've been told by people like me and others that, hey, certain things that you said are wrong and you never corrected them. And this is the reason why I'm doing these videos about you, because you keep going and going on and misinforming the public. Whether you're doing it on purpose or not.
I think that what's most valuable, though, is the truth, and ultimately the truth is going to shine bright. But I'm just going to say it clearly. There were people that had no authority to be on site, doing things there, saying things there. And
yeah, you only know of one, right? And that person, you really don't know if he should have been on site or not. And I know the person you're talking about because I spoke to somebody who threw him off site. Now, he came back on site. Whether he had authority to do so or not is not known to me or you, because you're guessing at this point. I don't know why you're not naming his name. His name is Lee Wheelbarger. And I'm the only person in 9/11, unfortunately, to interview the Pentagon incident commander, James Schwartz, former assistant fire chief of Arlington County Fire Department. A real hell of a guy. Nice guy, too. Harassed by people like this guy for the last 10 years, thinking that he's covering up a crime because they don't believe a plane hit the Pentagon. And he told me that this individual, Lee Wheelbarger, was not authorized to be there at that time. Now, you had a lot of people nationwide descending in New York City and Washington, D.C. to volunteer to help. And that's exactly what happened here with Lee Wheelbarger. Now, whether Lee Wheelbarger told the truth that he was head of cleanup, he wasn't head of cleanup that I know of, that James Schwartz know of. And that's why he was removed. Now, he came back, according to him, and he was given authorization to do so. Now, I don't know whether he had authorization to do so, and neither do you. And you're just assuming. And the reason why you're so angry at this guy, Adam, is because he called you out. And he called your names or whatever when you went to his YouTube channel. And because of the information I provided to you about James Schwartz, you're using that to say that, oh, this guy is a plant or whatever, or he's a nefarious element, as you would call him. And this is proof, and because he knows a plane crashed at the Pentagon, he's actually defending the official narrative. And if he's a plant, and anybody who else who agrees with the official narrative, well, they could be plants too. And that's why you're doing this. That's the reason why you're on this case.
When you mash these stories up over a number of public appearances, in addition to some things that I have got people to say publicly in anger, it doesn't add up. And so I can just say that a lot of these online discussion panels ultimately go to the witnesses. And I will now say that there are efforts being made to show that there is extreme levels of government corruption that tie in not only potentially FEMA, local firefighting agencies, the renovation project, the Secret Service, all of this and others. I have names.
All right, you got names. You don't have one name. You've been saying this for months. In fact, you've been saying it for a year, even on your Instagram page. You've been saying all this time, week after week, you're saying, oh, I know this person, I know he's corrupt, I know he should have been. You haven't said nothing. You've been interviewed like 5 times. I saw all your interviews too, with Jason Soraka and that one woman with the blonde hair, forgot her name. I've seen your interviews and you provide nothing in detail. We gave you, you know what? I opened up a Zoom room and Ed Brotherton was there, right? And we listened to you for an hour without interrupting you. You talked halfway about Lee Wheelbarger and the other half about your military service. Not a name that's considered a government plant. Nothing about any evidence that contradicts the narrative of the plane crashing into the Pentagon. Nothing. Even here, you provide nothing. Wait till next week, right? The big surprise, I'm going to reveal it. You're not going to reveal anything. And if you did, you wouldn't even be here. You would have done it last year. I'm calling you out. You don't have anything. And you're going all in.
And
meanwhile, look, he's implicating local fire agencies in a cover-up at the Pentagon. Firemen. This guy knows no bounds. Everyone's in on it. And later on, he's going to say everyone's lying because he doesn't trust anybody. But we should trust him and him alone over the hundreds, even thousands of people at the Pentagon who were involved with search and rescue, to clean up, and the collection of human remains. Everybody from the FAA to the NTSB to Arlington County to the FBI to FEMA to the Secret Service to even his own generals or lieutenants at the Pentagon, they're all in on it. But you aren't. You aren't a plant. You're not some agent working for the state. We should believe you because you were there. Well, I know other people who were there, and a lot more of them say that they saw a plane, that they were victims of being burned by the jet fuel of the plane, that they actually saw the plane crash at the Pentagon, than you who contradict them. You, just you. If this was a court of law, you would be out. You wouldn't last a day because you don't have nothing. Nada. Zippo.
These names are saying things that are very nefarious. And ultimately, these names lead to intelligence networks that are wide.
Even she's looking at you like, what are you talking about? That's what she's looking at you.
And so I've been investigating all this. My efforts are still ongoing. There are people that have been in the war room in the past that are helping me. This is stuff that I'm going through very slowly. But in my efforts to investigate, I'm also conducting research in areas that I haven't been able to find answers in. So I think there's new research that can be looked into, specifically the United States Army, the Old Guard, of which I was a member of. There's about 300 people on site. I'm trying to get witness statements from each and every single one of them concerning their efforts. And all of them can say the same thing. They spent about 240 hours on site. So they're going to say a lot of interesting things, but
how do you know? You haven't even interviewed any of them, and you're not gonna anyway. And not only that, they came afterwards, later in the day. Funny that you'll trust them, but you won't trust the people who were actually there and saw what happened. And I know why, is because you're a no-planer. And you have to defend this like a religion of sorts. You know what's funny is that people like you, Adam Eisenberg, is that you've been told for I don't know how long, usually no planers, it's years, that the official narrative is false. And to you, the official narrative, to no planers in general, the official narrative is as goes from my experience in dealing with them, that the official narrative is 19 radical fundamentalists from Al-Qaeda who hate our freedoms, hijacked 4 planes, 2 crashed into the World Trade Center, 1 crashed in the Pentagon, the other one crashed into a field in Shanksville, and that's it. That's the official narrative. That's just a microcosm of what happened and what's reported in the 9/11 Commission report or the FBI Pentagon report. Microcosm. There's a lot more to 9/11 than just that. And by the way, that's somewhat true. Yeah, there were 19 guys, but there were more. Yeah, there were 4 planes that were hijacked, but there were going to be more. And we could prove this. I mean, myself and Nelson Martins and Ryan Dawson, Sean Russell, Darren Harvey, the kids, Eric and Ben at the Project for New American Century. You know, we've been repeating ourselves ad nauseum about the information that we provide daily. You provide nothing. Your YouTube channel is 2 videos and your Twitter is not a post. You provide nothing, nothing.
Ultimately, I believe that there was some type of a thermobaric weapon inserted on site.
Oh, wow. Now, this is, you know, nothing surprised me anymore, but can you imagine a thermobaric weapon is what caused the damage at the Pentagon? The weapon that nobody saw. Why not at this point? Just make it up. Just make it up. Whatever you want. Whatever you want. No matter how we did, this is to no players are, they've been told that the official narrative is so wrong that any competing narrative, no matter how ridiculous, no matter how ludicrous it is, it will be accepted because at least it opposes the official narrative. Now, just imagine, here's a grown guy who's basically saying that a therapeutic weapon, and by the way, Gene actually shows it in a video, is what caused the damage at the Pentagon.
There is ways of filing FOIA requests in specific areas. that I was at that will ultimately really make it very interesting to see that if there was an actual trajectory of damage, why were bodies winding up where they were?
Because when the plane impacted the Pentagon, the entire first floor of Wedge 1 was affected by the shockwave of the blast. So when the plane actually impacted, when it dissolved the oxygen and filled the air with jet fuel, many people were killed instantaneously because they were suffocated, because they suffocated to death. And there were people in a room far away from the blast, and these people were killed. And that's what you can't understand. And for you, if you can't understand something, then I can assume that the narrative is wrong because it doesn't make sense. But if you actually researched or investigated without any preconceived bias, and that's what you didn't do here, you'd understand what happened in that specific incident. And we told you this. And when I interviewed James Schwartz, I went over this question with him. And he explained in detail. But that's not good enough for you, is it? Well, too bad.
In the manner in which they were being found, just a lot of things didn't make any sense. So I can just assure you that there's a lot of research going into it, and I want to thank the people that are assisting me with that. And I also want to say that very soon I'm going to be talking publicly about some people in the 9/11 truth movement. And that's all I want to say about that. So that's all I got to say.
What's a thermobaric weapon?
Yeah, I was just looking it up.
Yeah, it's a weapon. And it basically, it was used, to my understanding, militarily in a lot of cave situations where the way the bomb exploded, it would kill people in cave systems that
This is what he thinks
were down
did the damage at the
underground
Pentagon.
without-
This is what I'm serious. This is what he thinks did the damage at the Pentagon. And it's amazing, isn't it?
having to actually go down into these caves and to interject with them. But yeah, it's just the way that the bodies
Man, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
were being found. Somebody that knows weapon systems very well
Mm.
recommended that I study these things. And there's a lot of really interesting patterns that I'm finding. And these patterns are also kind of lining up with what first responders on site were saying. So there's like I said, there's a lot of different elements, and there's a lot of different ways that I can kind of look into this situation, just because I spent a lot of time on site there. And so I can kind of come up with ways of demanding information from the government that.
No, you can't. Like I said, you don't have a security clearance and you're a regular civilian, which means you have to go through the same channels as we do. So stop it. I mean, just stop.
Go outside of the parameters of what they have offered. And ultimately, my goal is to show that they're just withholding extreme amounts of information.
How do you know it's extreme? How do you know they're withholding anything? Why? Because it doesn't fit your narrative. You're the one with the narrative. The evidence is just the evidence. It just tells the story about what happened. And you don't like it. So you got to make up your own story. So you have an agenda.
And so my efforts, I'm formally calling them the Orion Project, are basically doing a full-scale alpha to omega breakdown with extreme detail into everything from the geopolitics leading up to the crime scene, to the entire crime scene itself.
Oh, I can't wait for that one. I can't wait. That's my area of study right there. I can't wait to see that. Because you already don't know what you're talking about here. I can only imagine you talking about, say, the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, or how these people were radicalized, or the 1979 Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. I can't wait to see that.
Each and every witness. And ultimately, I'm going to pressure the witnesses that say they saw a plane actually hit the building.
You're going to pressure. What could you possibly say? I know myself and Ed mentioned this because we actually covered this, but really, what are you going to say? Hey, you didn't really see the plane, did you? No, you didn't. You didn't see the plane. You saw something else. You're a liar. You're an agent. That's what you're going to do. That's what you're going to do. Oh, listen, who are we to believe? The person who was there or the person who wasn't there at the time of impact? I'm going to believe the people who were there. So why don't we do this? Right? How about we watch a video of eyewitnesses and see what they have to say? Because I'd rather believe them than you. You weren't there. You weren't there at the time of impact. All right. So here, I'm just gonna play this video. All right. Here we go. We'll share the screen.
7:57, and it came in and hit the heliport.
As it was coming in, and I watched it come right in. And I was
what kind of plane was it?
American Airlines. It came streaking down and hit.
Right there, dude, right where that smoke's coming out. I was in my car. Yeah, a big-ass plane landed into the Pentagon.
Off to the left-hand side was a commercial plane that came in and was coming too fast and too low. And the next thing we saw was it go down below the side of the road, and we just saw the fire.
Saw a large airliner-sized plane, roughly a 767 size airliner, very deep descent, approaching the Pentagon.
I saw a plane going down, big plane, commercial liner type, going down full speed and just inside the side of the...
There you go. Everybody saw a plane, but you weren't there. They were. So I don't care what you have to say. You're nothing at this point, because any reasonable investigator is going to interview the people who were actually there at the time of impact. They wouldn't interview you. I don't care if you didn't see plane debris. I don't care. They did. They saw it. They were there. You weren't. You came later. And according to you, and just you didn't see anything. Meanwhile, I could provide 100 people who had testified that they either saw the plane impact the building, saw plane debris at the crash site. So you could pressure all the eyewitnesses you want, and you're not going to do anything. You're all talk. All talk. CIT tried and they failed miserably. In fact, they failed so badly. That's why they haven't been relevant for the last, 12, 13 years? Because those guys actually went and interviewed people who said, oh, you saw a plane coming from the north side? But to them, the plane flew over the building. But guess what? Every single one of those eyewitnesses said the plane actually crashed into the Pentagon. You can't make this stuff up, because these people lack that.
And if people say, well, you you're dragging these poor people into this event. How could you? Ultimately, I go back to the people that I have on site saying the terrible things that I have them on record saying.
No, you don't. You don't have anything on record, or else you would have provided it a long time ago. And yeah, I'm going to believe the people who are actually there over you and anybody else who came later.
There's hours upon hours of it. And so, you know, I hate to say it, that's my thing. I can prove that there were nefarious efforts being made by government employees on.
Oop, he froze.
I'm afraid to say that publicly. So
wait, you broke.
Well, I mean, why wouldn't you say it publicly, right? Of course, you're saying publicly, and you do this a couple of times, because I think you're in your mind, you're just trying to make something sound reasonable, because you are basically making things up, and you don't know what to say next. It's a tell. In other words, it's a tell regarding a person not being honest.
Up there, you were afraid to say something about employees.
No,
and
I said I can prove with extreme clarity through hours of testimony that there were government employees on site that were nefariously entered into that position. And they're saying things that are just so off track, and
He's just talking about Lee Wheelbarger, and that's it. That's all. He doesn't have multiple people. That's it, one person.
they're disinforming and just extreme levels.
No, you're disinforming. You're disinforming. And we could prove it easily. Question is, we want to know why you're doing it.
And this one individual specifically, he to my understanding,
Say his name.
He even considered himself, he publicly went on record saying, you know, that he was doing spooky things for the government. So he was a total spook. His own family members were under the Trump administration about to be promoted to the highest levels of the.
How does, I don't know what he's talking about here. I don't know what he's talking about. What's the highest levels of the Trump government? What does that even mean? You know, a lot of things that you talk about regarding the Pentagon are very vague, nothing specific. I mentioned this when we did the video between me and Ed the other day. You're not specific at all. And that's, I know why, is because you can't be, because you're making stuff up.
CIA. So I don't know where these connections, how deep and how far they go, but this guy
Well, you just said they're going to be at the highest levels. So obviously, you know, you don't even know what you're talking about. Look at, I mean, goodness gracious.
To one person's knowledge, there was only one individual that even knew who this person was that I'm speaking of, and that was Ken Jenkins. Ken Jenkins, in a conversation, and several with me actually, has said that this man was on site, and he was basically there, just showed up as one of those rogue do-gooder kind of people. James Schwartz, the incident commander himself, basically said that there were 24 elements on site.
No, he didn't say that. He said there were 24 different fire departments on site. Man, now you're just you're making it up. You're not being honest. You're just not. And he said it during my interview. I mean, what are you doing, Adam? What is this? What is all this about? Are you trying to portray yourself as a bigger individual than what you are to other people in the 9/11 truth movement because they'll believe anything at this point? If that's the case, I mean, really, what does that say about you? This is unbelievable. It's embarrassing. You know, it really is.
Different various firefighting elements, and that's some.
What's it? What you talk about? Firefighting elements, fire departments. It's not a secret. My goodness gracious. There were dozens and dozens of agencies there. He said 24 fire departments from around the county
showed up unannounced.
They showed up unannounced. No, they didn't. The Pentagon was a 5-alarm fire. Oh my.
And basically, my investigation is into those people and those elements that were on site.
Can't wait till you investigate the 24 fire departments. I can't wait. I can't wait.
But I can also say publicly now that if you go and listen to Adam Fitzgerald, he's my biggest critic.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Because I'll call you out, just like I'll call Christopher Bolin out, Rebecca Ward. No matter how big of a name you are, how small of a name you are, if you're disinformed the public about 9/11, I'm going to call you out because somebody has to. And for years and years and years, nobody called out Bolin. Nobody called out Rebecca Roth. Nobody called out Jason Burmis and Loose Change or Dave Von Kleist from In Plain Sight or Alex Jones and Jim Fetzer and Thierry Mason and all these others and dozens of others. Well, I am. Now, Ryan Dawson did it years ago, but he stepped away from 9/11 because he's had enough of this. I don't blame him, but I am. I'm going to hold you account. I take the subject seriously. I devoted a lot of my adult life to this subject and try to report it fairly and accurately and responsibly. And people like you don't help.
If you go and listen to his podcast with James Schwartz, he talks about these elements. And so I've got these elements kind of mincing words now.
What does he talk about elements? I don't even know what that means. Again, vague. Now, with James Schwartz, he mentioned 24 different fire departments arrived on site. That's what he said. And to this guy, it's elements. What does that even mean? He's trying to make it sound like the entire apparatus from the federal, state, and local level are all in on it. Because that's what he's asserting. Why? Because all of this is against him. Because he's the one making the claim that he didn't see any plane debris, and that means the plane didn't crash the Pentagon. Meanwhile, the overwhelming number of people who were there, who helped in the search and rescue, all contradict him, so that means they're all lying.
James Schwartz. So I'm about to leverage James Schwartz, the incident commander, and this guy against one another. Random fact, James Schwartz's wife was a very high-ranking member in the CIA as well, which I'm not even going to speculate into that.
Now, like I said, you already did. You're speculating that James Schwartz is in on it too, because his wife worked for the CIA at the highest level. What does that even mean? He didn't mention anything like that in the interview. So I don't know how you knew that she works at the highest levels. Well, I mean, at this guy, everyone's at the highest levels. Everyone's an element. Everyone's in on it.
But I can just say, like I said, there's a lot of things that don't add up. And and Ken Jenkins thought this man was just an individual on site. But this guy actually on record states that he had his firefighters there. And to my understanding, he was a part.
He doesn't have firefighters. This guy worked at some contracting agency out west, and he came alone. So he doesn't have firefighters. You don't even know what you're talking about. You're just babbling. And Gene and Sandra are all eating it up. Not even ask them, hey, wait a minute. How do you know this? How do you? No, they just believe it. Why? Because at least it goes against the official narrative. And you're on our side.
Part of a West Coast agency, and even his own government agency had no idea that he was on site. That picture that you just had as well, back before that one right there, that guy to the left is General James Jackson. I'm investigating him as well. He was the military district.
And everyone, Everyone. Put them all under the microscope. Everyone's in on it. You're like Mel Gibson in the movie Conspiracy Theory.
Washington's commander. He, set out an order. It was to my understanding he ordered people from my unit to guard Fort McNair. I was a part of that order, and I wasn't given live rounds. They basically handed me an empty magazine. So when I asked the arms room specialist, hey, why are you giving me an empty magazine to guard a base when I can see smoke from the Pentagon right over the Anacostia River? Well, he said, well, you haven't been authorized to get live rounds. That's just a random story. So I'm investigating him as well. I'm trying to get answers there. But Ken Jenkins, going back to the guy I'm investigating, this guy's name is Lee Wheelbarger. Ken Jenkins thought that he was basically put on site. He came on site as a lone wolf. And that is absolutely not the case.
Well, how do you know that? You don't know that. He did arrive alone. He had nobody with him.
I've asked Ken Jenkins numerous times if he could give me details on the interaction that he had with Lee Wheelbarger. He's indicated that he's had notes on the man. So I'm working with him. I've been trying to get those notes for quite some time. So I'm going to be writing him again about that. But yep, long story short, there he is. That's the man who is publicly threatening me and basically doing everything he can to smear me. That is the star element of my investigation.
He actually blocked you, I think, on YouTube because you went to his live chat site with, I don't know who else, and you started harassing him. From what I know, he called you out because somebody recommended him. Somebody recommended in the chat, in a live chat, about you being there. And then he says, oh yeah, I'll talk with them. And then when you started doing your spiel about you didn't see any plane debris, he just got, agitated with you and probably told you, oh, you probably weren't even there, that you took offense to that, and basically said, every nasty word to him. And he probably said nasty words to you and blah, blah, blah. And that's it. Nature of the conversation. He called you out. You didn't like it.
He says, and a lot of things that just aren't true. So
well,
that's all I'm gonna say.
Guess what? You said a bunch of things so far that aren't true. You made stuff up. You belong with each other.
About that, but yep.
Right
All
on.
right, so coming back to my question to everybody, but now to you, what would be you're basically saying no plane hit the Pentagon?
I do not remember.
Or are you not? Okay.
Just the damage wasn't even close to something that I would say had anything to do with a plane, especially a large commercial airline hitting there.
See, you see how dishonest this is? He won't definitively state on the record that a plane didn't hit there, but he can say with clear clarity that I didn't see any plane debris. What looked like to be plane debris. Right? So you're keeping your options open. That's like April Gallop, right? These are the no plaintiffs at the Pentagon always use April Gallop as an eyewitness, right? She made the claim to CIT years ago, I think in 2006 or 2004, where she says, I came out of the one of the holes of the Pentagon, the damage area, and I didn't see any plane debris. Meanwhile, in her own oral testimony to the Department of the Navy, she said that when she was rescued by people on the first floor in her office, someone carried her baby, and she fainted before she got out of the building. So she couldn't see anything, according to her own words. And later on in 2011, when she filed a civil suit against Dick Cheney, Donna Rumsfeld, and Richard Myers, NORAD chief, she later amended that to put in Osama bin Laden and American Airlines, because she said this: if the competing theory of a plane 77 crashing in the Pentagon is true by Al Qaeda, well, then I'm a victim of it. I deserve compensation. They threw a case out, frivolous. And the judge fined her lawyers like 15 grand. And Barbara Honegger used April Gallop and basically catapulted her and twisted her words or whatever and stuff like that. And so the lawyers for April Gallop got mad at Barbara Honegger for doing it. That sounds like you. Oh, I don't want to say a plane didn't crash there, but I don't know if a plane didn't crash there, but I didn't see any plane debris, which would mean a plane didn't crash there.
I would say that if there were elements of the plane that flew, if there was an actual plane, you know, you could break down the argument from a number of different ways. And of course, we all know the way that I don't even want to get into that, but
you can.
There's just a lot of things that I think a lot of witnesses that could have been put out there. You know, if you look at the way that the FBI was collecting parts between Shanksville and the Pentagon, it was totally different.
Yeah, two different crash sites. One was in a building, the other one's in a field, right? One has a blazing fire, the other one doesn't, right?
And I can tell you, I did not see anything in my 240 hours on site that looked at all like there was any type of plane debris.
And yet we have hundreds of people that saw plane debris or saw the plane crash into the building. Now what do we do? Who do we believe? Well, according to him, because everyone else, he says, is lying.
Didn't see any people that looked like they died on a plane.
Oh, right. Because what would a person look like who was killed on a plane? Would they look like this? This is taken from the Pentagon. It was used in the 2006 Zacharias Moussaoui trial. That doesn't even look like a person, but it is. How would you know that? Right? Because that's what a person would look like after being on a plane, traveling 530 miles an hour, carrying 8,000 pounds of fuel and crashing and exploding into a million pieces. In the book Firefight, written by Patrick Creed and Rick Newman, they said that the people in the back of 77, when the plane impacted the wall at the moment of impact, the back of the plane became the front of the plane in less than half a second. Now, just use your simple imagination of what a human body will look like after that. And then you'll get your answer.
I can tell you, based on the ways that I've shook Lee Wheelbarger publicly, that the specific area on the map where it was a highly protected area where you had to have special access to get on site. So, like I said, I've got several hours of this guy Lee Wheelbarger saying things that are so just terribly.
Who cares, right? If Lee Wheelbarger wasn't supposed to be there, then he wasn't supposed to be there. But what does that have to do with the plane crashing into the Pentagon? Nothing. And this is the reason why you're concentrating on Lee Wheelbarger too, is because you can't basically do anything regarding the overwhelming evidence that contradicts your flimsy narrative. And that's why I'm doing this video, to tell the public that this guy is not being honest with you. And don't believe me, just go by the evidence that is presented in the public sphere and listen to the eyewitnesses who were actually there. There are plenty of them. I have an entire playlist on my YouTube channel, which you could view 50 videos of people who saw the plane crash or saw plane debris at the Pentagon.
You know, wrong and just nefarious. He's basically changed his, he has a thing called KLW News. He's basically now got a paid news source. So he's now disinforming the masses. And if you look into his...
Disinforming about what specifically? Be specific. Like I said with Ed Brotherton the other night, be specific. Stop playing these word games. Stop being vague. Stop promising the world and produce.
Subscribership, I mean, he's got 50,000 people following him, and his viewership is in the multi-millions. But he was on site. He is a technical weapons specialist, and I believe that he ultimately set off what seemed to be like I said, a thermobaric weapon.
So according to him now, it was Wheelbarger that shot the therapeutic weapon or therapeutic weapon, whatever this is, into the Pentagon. And Sandra and Jean are just sitting there like this. Dude. Not even challenging his points. Not once. Just believing anything he says. But God forbid, if I'm talking or Ed is talking about hijacked planes and hijackers, oh, we got to cut that up. We got to talk about ground zero. We don't talk about that here. Simplify 9/11 for us. That's what they told me to do once for them. Simplify 9/11. I wish I could. I ended up like this guy.
And those, I believe, even have some type of a gasoline element. So jet fuel, gasoline. I mean, there were people that were allegedly burned by jet fuel.
It's not alleged. It's documented. And I'll even play a video of one such person who was actually burned over 60% of his body. So let's see that video of Brian Birdwell, the Department of the Navy.
I'm Brian Birdwell, Lieutenant Colonel, retired United States Army, and your current serving state senator for District 22 in the Texas State Senate. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be alive. I should have died inside the building. I'm 15 to 20 yards from the nose of the fuselage of an 80-ton jet making impact with the building. I'm the only survivor in the E-ring at the crash site.
Yeah. He's a liar too, Adam. Is everyone lying but you, right? 26 people were injured by jet fuel.
But when it boils down to it, you know, I'm using my status as a first responder there and the investigation that I have. I'm eventually going to apply very legal. I'm not going to break any rules. I'm not going to threaten anybody, but very heavy levels of pressure to the people that said that they saw an actual commercial airliner.
What do you mean by that? Heavy levels of pressure. So you're not going to break the law. So you're not going to punch them in the face, in other words, or threaten them with a gun. So you're basically going to yell as loud as you can, la, 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 la. That's going to be you. Is that what you're going to do? You didn't see a plane, loser. Is that what you're going to? I mean, what does that even mean? Really, just what could that? What are you going to do? Scream at them? Tell them you didn't see what you saw. You're a plant. You're a shill. Well, you might as well join the ranks of the people on Facebook with those fake profiles of 9/11 banner for truth or whatever, that tell people online that they're idiots and shills and government agents because You're defending the official narrative.
Hit the building because I quite frankly don't believe them.
Right, of course. So that means everyone's lying, right? So 86 people, in which 24 or 26 of them, Ken Jenkins says, can identify it as an American Airlines, but they're all lying, but you, because that's what you told me once, right? I mentioned this in the previous video with Ed, where it was in a Richard Gage video where I said, Adam, why should we believe you? We have 86 people who saw a plane crash in the building. And Adam Eisenberg told me, have you ever given a thought that they're all lying? So I told him that, okay, they're all lying, but you're telling the truth. What a remarkable claim. All you have to do is prove they're lying. Prove that everyone's lying. Prove that the plane debris is planted. Prove the radar satellite data is manipulated. Prove that the phone calls made on Flight 77 are faked. Prove that the FAA, the NTSB, the employees at American Airlines who gave boarding passes to these hijackers, they're all lying. Prove it. And then you got a case.
And that's where I think everybody, the arguments always go to the witnesses.
Yeah, because why would I believe you who wasn't there at the time of impact over somebody who was there at the time of impact? And everyone there at the time of impact saw the same thing. So you don't like that answer, and now you're going to call everybody there a liar. Meanwhile, Sandra and Jean of the War Room sitting there. And they claim that they're truth advocates. They claim to care about the victims' families. They claim to care about the people affected by 9/11. Here's a guy who's basically calling them a liar. Jean and Sandra, zip. You didn't even challenge him on this damning point. So what does that say about you guys? Well, at least he's on our side. He's against the official narrative.
And if anybody wants to get pissed off at me, I just say, look, you know, find somebody that has the level of experience with airplane parts.
Yeah. You don't have experience with plane parts at the time of September 11, 2001. That came afterwards. Then that's from your own mouth. So right here, what you're saying, you're lying.
I have in the time spent on site that I spent, and even people in my unit, they're going to say a number of things. Most people fall into the category that they don't remember seeing any plane parts.
Really? Because you just said that there were over 300 people in your unit and you have yet to interview them. So how could you know that a majority of them didn't see any plane debris? If you're going to be a liar, you got to be a good liar, and you got to have a good memory.
And the funny thing is that the people that think they saw plane parts are saying they saw things that there's no record of. Well, then if anybody wants to, you know, challenge that, you can't find any record of anything anywhere.
How do you know? The debris was cataloged. It was actually used by the prosecution of Zacharias Nasawi in 2006.
And I can tell you from my own experience that every single part on a plane has a serial number etched into.
Imagine, now I mentioned this with Ed too. Imagine the entire plane, every square inch has the serial number on it, written all over it. Now, if you ever looked at a video of how a plane is built on YouTube, go watch, you'll see it. I don't know what this guy, he's just making stuff up, and it sounds ridiculous because he's got to make something up in contrast to the actual evidence.
To it. I can just tell you that. And
okay, so you know what? This is a short clip of a guy, and I think this is from a History Channel or National Geographic documentary. This is a great video. I mean, short, but wow. It was taken in the A&E rings, I want to say. And he's holding up a piece of the plane part, and it has a serial number on it. It says American Airlines on it.
What's obvious is over there we have a section of the wheel, one of the wheels.
See, this is all the plane debris. So this is part of the fuselage, it looks like.
Here, it actually says American Airlines.
I think we saw the wheel. Hold on. Let me go back.
Airlines part number. Something. So this is definitely, we know this is American Airlines.
Look, a wheel right there. Right there. Did they plant that? Just throw it right there without anybody watching? Just taking a big, large piece of the wheel.
We found this part in the
Right
city
here.
where we were standing earlier today. It's been washed a bit away. But hopefully with something like this, we'll be able to identify exactly where it came from.
Now, American Airlines.
And maybe that'll
Let's see if I can get
later
here.
on invest.
Yeah, Airlines, American Airlines. That's what it says on
Find out exactly.
right, and that's the clearest. American, CCANAIRLINE, American Airlines. There it is, Adam Eisenberg. But I know you're going to say, well, it doesn't say that. Meanwhile, you could see it right there. Or you're going to say, well, how do you know we didn't plan it? So, right? I don't need to show this anymore. My goodness. Yeah, let's go back.
And so, that's where I'm going to try and file FOIA requests. And ultimately, the government's not going to give us anything.
But he gave himself an out right here, right? He's going to say, well, I'm going to try, and I'm going to let you know that I tried. But if they don't respond, then that means that, they're covering something up. I mean, man.
And that's where I'm going to go back to,
So then why file it out? Why file it if you know they're not going to give you what you want?
My quest of just showing the public, hey, look, even with my levels of access, I am.
Yeah, you don't have a level of access over anybody else. You're a civilian. You don't have a security clearance.
Not getting answers. So that's, and then
Yeah, you're not getting answers that you want to hear. That's all. You're not going to get answers you want to hear because the evidence contradicts your narrative. Everything contradicts your narrative.
Ultimately, I have my own personal anomalies that I've experienced with 9/11. I discussed one of them with not getting any ammunition on guard duty, but there's so many others that I'm working on right now. And
can't wait.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that are coming forward, and I would also like to say that Lorraine is doing some great work. If you guys really want to see how good she is with the witnesses, there's some really good discussions on.
Yeah, this is about Lorraine Clark, a Facebook troll who basically just, is another one, no planer, and makes stuff up,
The Facebook group that I think Gene is.
Speaking of that, she's actually just joined us. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Up, Lorraine? Yeah. So yeah, it's great to have her here. But I think ultimately the witnesses, I'm going to be applying a pressure to the ones that say they saw a plane hit. And I think if they react the same way that Lee Wheelbarger is reacting and has been reacting to me, they're gonna fold, and they're gonna
see all the eyewitnesses are sort of plane hit, right? That's the reason why he's going after Lee Wheelbarger, because he knows a plane hit the building and he shouldn't have been on site. So that means he's a plant. So that means the eyewitnesses are plants too, or liars. And that's what That's the main reason why he's going after Lee Wheelbarger. That's all. Because if he could prove that, oh, he's a plant, that means everybody who saw a plane is a plant. Man.
They're gonna run. So
Oh, you're the one running. I challenge you to a debate. You ran. I told you we do it on Reed Coverdale's show, who's a good moderator. He actually had Jason Burmis on his show. He wasn't rude to him. In fact, they're friends. But you said no. You said no. I said, I'll give you an unlimited time. Unlimited. Whatever you want. I need 20 minutes. I said 10, but I'll take 20. To be honest, I only need 10 for you. You turned it down. I know why. I know why.
Can I just ask you a technical question? Again, coming back to the thermobaric weapons,
sure.
How would that be deployed? Is that something that has to be shot? Is it something that could be planted? Is it how does it even work?
Well, to my understanding, it could be both. And here's where it gets interesting. You know, some people, and I'm not leaning on anybody's work, but some people have talked about drones. Well, Lee Wheelbarger was a drone specialist. Weapon systems as well.
So yeah, Lee Wheelbarger is a drone specialist. That means that, yeah, he's in charge of a drone flying into the Pentagon, or he was in charge of shooting the Thermobaric weapon from either from under the ground or some far distance.
Well, explosives, electronics, all that stuff.
Wow.
And I can tell you, a lot of people say that they didn't smell jet fuel, but they smelled, I forget what it was. Yep, that's it.
Nobody smelled Cordite. Ed Brotherton broke this story regarding Cordite, right? So let's go to that one, because that's a good one by Ed Brotherton, who's phenomenal. Ed Brotherton's phenomenal. And this was in response to Barbara Honegger regarding this claim that, oh, they smelled Cordite, right? No, they didn't smell Cordite because it was never used by the United States military, ever. So let's listen to Ed Brotherton talk about Cordite. This is in response to Barbara Honegger and the presentation Behind the Smoke Curtain, in which she claims that there were 2 or 3 people that smelled Cordite.
Okay, Barbara, this is for you. Listen, in your presentation, Behind the Smoke Curtain, there is I'll show and share it. You have this slide, and it says here, deals with the multiple witnesses to the smell of Cordite, very distinct from jet fuel kerosene. And you have all these folks here quoting them. The smell of Cordite was overwhelming. Then I said, even before stepping outside, I could smell the Cordite. Then I knew explosives had to have been set off somewhere. John Perkle. Cordite smell also reported by April Gallop, Gila Goldsmith, Samuel Danner, and others. Let's talk about this for a second, because it's heavily problematic. All right. First of all, let me just state that I was a security specialist in the Air Force. I was so I'm trained on security on military installations, and I have fired every kind of weapon you can possibly imagine. Everything from Mark 19s, M203s, M249s, M60s, AR-15s. I was a fire line safety officer at Travis Air Force Base as a temporary duty assignment. I have fired everything from law rockets to mortars to throwing hand grenades to you name it. And I could probably and I know what that smell. I know what that smell is. You know, the gunpowder that you smell, and even I would never say something like, smells like Cordite. because I don't know what the hell's cordite is, nor did I know. And the reason being is because cordite hasn't been used in the military, or actually hasn't been used since the 1940s. It was actually the British used it as a propellant for their ammunition back in around from 1889 to about around the 1940s. The last cordite factory actually closed around 1940s, and so I don't know where this cordite's coming from, since nobody in the modern military would even know what it smells like, and nobody in the modern military would ever have experienced it, and nobody in the modern military would have any exposure to it because it's not used anymore. It hasn't been used since the 1940s, and when it was used by the British, not by the U.S. So, so I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know why people are saying that they smell cordite. So I would say, if I smell what I think they're actually smelling, I would say, to give you credit, I would say I smell gunpowder. That's what I would say, because that's what most people are familiar with. And what I suspect that they're probably smelling, and this is me speculating, by the way, because I have no idea how to prove what they smell, because it's not something I can observe visually and actually test. But you know, I work with electronic equipment, cameras, things like that for a living currently. Sometimes I have electronic component that will fail or malfunction. I'll take it apart, and one of the things I'll do is a sniff test, and I'll take the component up to my nose like a circuit board, and I'll smell it, and I'll smell for a burnt circuit. And burnt circuits have a very distinct smell, and that's how you can find where the problem is. So you can put the circuit up to your nose. So the Pentagon contained, you know, thousands of computers and lots of circuit boards, and I would imagine that the fires burning inside the Pentagon was burning a lot of those components, and that was probably what they were smelling. But again, I'm speculating, so there's no way for me to prove that. But I would say that would be a pretty distinct smell, and it would be pretty pungent and very noticeable. And so anyway, you might want to revisit this cordite situation, because it doesn't make any sense.
There you go. There you have it. End of story.
Yeah, to me, it smelled like an electrical fire. There was that overwhelming electrical burning sensation, but yeah.
What does cordite smell like? We all gotta have.
Yeah, but some people were burned with gasoline. I don't know, and that's the thing. This is where ultimately I don't believe anybody. And if
That's right, because you have a narrative to sell, and even to the people that were injured, this is how low you'll go. You're not going to believe them, like Brian Birdwell and the 24 others that were burned by jet fuel. They're lying. You're not.
And it boils down to the fact that one of the guys in a leadership position, you know, is saying all this crazy stuff.
No, you're saying all the crazy stuff. You are, only you. I'll believe them before I believe you. Why would anyone believe you? After this video, why would anyone, reasonable anyway, believe you? You know who's going to believe you? Gene and Sandra. They'll believe you. The people in the war room, they'll believe you, because they are a small fringe minority group in the truth movement that believe anything over the official narrative. Anything. No matter how ludicrous it is, they'll believe it. But to the rest of the world, they're not going to believe a word you say.
And when there was a command structure, I don't have it unfortunately in front of me, but it's on my other computer. But the gentleman that I'm investigating says that he was the head of logistics, and the incident commander is saying that he had no business on site and he was removed by the FBI at the incident commander's request through his assistant. And then so I've got now this guy who says he was allegedly the head of logistics and spent more time on site than anybody, saying that the FBI was wrong, and he came back and that they were misinformed. And so it's this,
it's everything that he said, I told him. He didn't do this on his own. I told him this, right? He came back. And James Schwartz didn't know about it. And so, no, actually, I'm sorry. James Schwartz did know about it because he told me in a follow-up email that he came back on site because he got clearance. So Eisenberg is basically saying that, that because he's in on it, they gave him the clearance to come back, which doesn't make sense. Why would they throw him off in the first place if he's in on it? He's just making stuff up.
This great just whirlwind of things that aren't adding up. So, I don't know, but thermobaric weapons, if anybody knows anybody that has any type of experience with weapons, missiles, explosive, things like that, let me know. And there's also 3 or 4 days after the incident, James Schwartz did a talk where he was talking about the collapsed portion of the building having an extremely hot, still extremely hot sensation. Like it was unlike anything he'd ever seen. He almost kind of
that's right, because
in the
he's
interview.
never been to a plane impacting a building before. It took him a day and a half to put out the fire. Jet fuel will do that. But you don't believe in jet fuel.
So, I would love for the scientists to discuss that. I don't think they have. But, it seems to me that such a small area, and even the pictures don't capture just how small it was. There were several people in my unit that were even making the claim. They're like, that doesn't look anything like an airplane hit it.
The entire first floor was destroyed of Wedge 1. The entire Wedge 1. Severe damage to the second floor of Wedge 1. The entire wedge. You have no idea what you're talking about. Either that or you're just making this all up.
So I've been saying the things that I've been saying for a long time. The only reason I didn't really publicly go forward with it is because every time I talked to people outside of my friends and family circle, they looked at me like I was nuts.
Well, there you go. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? I told you. Outside of the fringe movement in the 9/11 Truth Movement, you'll be perceived this way. Because the things that you say are either non-existent, you just make them up, or factually incorrect, mistaken. And when you combine the both continuously, you're going to get that look like.
But now that the jabs are going on and we can all kind of see the overarching tyranny, the world's waking up. So I'm finding that people are very receptive to this information now. So that
No, like I said, outside the fringe cult, no one's receptive to you.
that's really my goal in life, is to just discuss this stuff. And like I said, my goal is just over the next few years, just continue to do research and prove that the government is withholding immense amounts of information. So I'm even looking into Dulles. I want to turn Dulles upside down and show just how you know, you don't see hijackers getting on planes. You see, I believe, 2 going through an unstamped time sequence. You know, there's no timestamp sequence.
Yeah, it's a Vernon system. And by the way, you do see a passenger from Flight 77 in that video, Marie Ray Sopper. Myself and DJ Thermodetonator have shown this. She's wearing a red, I think she was wearing white shirt, gray blouse, carrying her cat in a cargo holder. She was killed on Flight 77. In the video is the hijackers of Flight 77. It was September 11, 2001. And then you got employees of American Airlines like Vaughn Alex, who gave a boarding pass to Khalid Al-Midar and Salim Al-Hazmi, hijackers of Flight 77. But they're all lying, according to you.
On a video, so yeah, there's just a lot of different ways that you can look at this, and I can tell you with extreme confidence that there's a lot of research that's just not being done.
No, you don't research. So nothing's being done on your part. That I could say with extreme confidence. Just judging by what you're saying, which is very little in this video, you have no idea what you're talking about. None. You know, you come out of nowhere with a dead YouTube channel, a dead Twitter profile, no activity, and only the fringe circles of 9/11 in the truth movement are interviewing you. Nobody else is, because nobody takes you seriously.
So,
Thank you.
yep.
Kale?
Yeah, I'll go next, I guess. For
Well, here we go. One of the brightest and the best.
what Sandra was saying on my stance on the Pentagon. This is my first discussion on it.
Yeah, you're a no-planer. Another one. Doesn't believe there were hijackers even. Another one. And this is what makes up the truth movement these days online. People like this guy.
And like you and Richard,
That's why it's dead. 9/11 truth movement is dead. Activism is dead. I know that's Gene's main prerogative for the 9/11 war room, but he's in for a real sad wake-up call. I mean, Gene, I was at Ground Zero last year. I met you and Sandra there. There were 20 of you. It's dead. For the 20th anniversary, there were maybe 20 of you. I was expecting a lot more than that. I thought, boy, was I wrong. Completely underwhelming. And the weather wasn't bad. It was actually nice. Very comfortable. A failure. And I wonder why. Is it because you're made up of people that believe in all sorts of crackpottery theories, which actually hurts you in the public eye? The CIA, the state government, don't need to do anything. You're doing it for them.
really don't take a solid stance. Planes, no planes again.
Imagine here, I don't have a stance on the Pentagon. I don't know what happened there. I'm not going to believe the eyewitnesses because I don't believe in the official narrative. And the official narrative is this small microcosm because their view of 9/11 is limited. They don't know anything about the profiles of the hijackers. They don't know anything about the NSA's pre-intelligence regarding the Ahmed al-Hada house or bin Laden's satellite phone. They don't know anything about Alex Station and the CIA. They don't know anything about Abel Danger and the DIA. They don't know anything about 9/11 at all. It's a limited view. They parrot other people's work. That's all they're good for. That's it. How are you going to call yourself an advocate?
Just like the towers. But our main concern is the evidence that's being withheld, the video evidence that's
What video evidence is being withheld? Give me anything. What video evidence? I didn't need a video to know a plane crashed there. Everyone that was there in the vicinity of the Pentagon saw a plane crash there. The people who were involved with the search and rescue collected plane debris and human remains of Flight 77. That evidence was used by the District of Columbia to prosecute Zacharias Moussaoui in 2006. If all that evidence is fabricated and doesn't exist, how did the lawyers of Zacharias Moussaoui not challenge it and say, hey, wait a minute, this evidence is fictitious. My client's innocent.
being withheld, just like a body cam on a police officer.
You have no idea what you're talking about. None. You don't even know what cameras they're holding. What cameras? Which one? Name one. Do you even know?
They know how important it is for us to see that. And
now let me play a theory for you, right? Let's just say there is camera evidence, right? And they are withholding it. Well, the point is that the theories that you're propositioning today actually go to cover up for the State Department regarding their links into withholding information about two Al-Qaeda operatives, Khalid al-Bernardo al-Fazmi, who are inside the United States from the FBI and State Department, right? But because you don't believe in hijackers, this evidence doesn't exist. So what I'm trying to say for you, Chief, is that you, by propositioning these theories, you are covering up for the State Department, FBI, who are covering up for the CIA and the State Department. That's what you're doing. And you don't even realize that much. Because like I said, your view for 9/11 is limited.
and they're withholding it for reasons we don't even know. And they call it
you don't know. You don't know. You don't even know what videos you're talking about.
Would be what Adam just was talking about, and Ed Brotherton, and we all got into it that one time. We're talking about where the plane parts.
The plane parts were cataloged by the FBI. That's who has them. They were in charge of the investigation. They have them. It was used to prosecute. It was used as a prosecution trial exhibits. It's cataloged in the trial exhibits, which you could see online.
They should be cataloged and stored somewhere.
It is.
And it's not that we haven't, it's not that we haven't asked, it's that they won't give us the evidence.
Exactly.
File a FOIA request. Isn't that what you did, Gene? You did for the cameras, but did you do it for the debris? They have it.
That's what you're saying. Why aren't they giving us the evidence? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to give an example.
And then, no, go ahead. Please add to whatever I'm saying. Also, the hit on the Pentagon allowed us to go to war. That's all our tax money. That's our children's lives. That's the strangers were invading their lives. You know, there's so much involved with the Pentagon being a key to go to war.
Mm-hmm.
And then third, the area that was hit, whether it was investigating the missing money that Rumsfeld was talking about.
You don't even know what you're talking about here. You're just repeating fringe conspiracies that you learned online because you don't read anything that contradicts your worldview of 9/11. $2.3 trillion wasn't missing. It wasn't allocated properly. This was reported by the Associated Press in March of 2000. Look up Los Angeles Times, Pentagon finances don't add up. Rumsfeld announced this in a, I think a ceremony for the military or something, the night that on September 10, 2001. Now, if you're trying to say that Rumsfeld let it slip or whatever, and that they're involved with stealing money, why would he announce it at all? Knowing that the next day, the attack was going to happen. It's like you guys say something without thinking about it. And the things that you say are easily contradicted when the average Joe can just look it up online in a mere minute and see that the opposite is true. But you guys in this war room, you guys only listen to certain people, whether it's Christopher Bolin, whether it's Barbara Honegger, Richard Gage, and all of those people have a very, very limited view of 9/11, and all of them make stuff up. And you're victims of it. I'm not blaming Eugene or Sandra or Chief. You're victims. And then when I'm in a room, when I went to your war room and I helped you out with certain things, and then you tell me, hey, could you simplify 9/11? Because when I say Arab names, it confuses you and you can't really process. That's not my fault. You want a simplistic view of 9/11? It's not going to happen. And maybe this is the reason why you don't want me around, because I'm rude to people like Barbara Honegger. I'm extremely, disgustingly rude to her. In fact, I wish I could have said worse things in that email. That's what she deserves. But you want her to be on your side? Go ahead. I will never support the Lawyers Committee. I will never support people who make stuff up. People who intentionally make stuff up. That's what Barbara Honegger does. That's what Richard Gage does. Sorry, I know you think of the world of Richard Gage, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he interviews people who make stuff up, like Dave Von Cleese, like Barbara Honegger, and they're board members for the Lawyers Committee. I got standards, Gene. I got standards. And anybody who's worth their salt would never stand by people who make stuff up. They won't do it. And if that means you won't talk to me, you'll block me, go ahead. Go ahead. But you know, as well as I know, that what I just said is true. And you don't like it. You don't like it. So you call us the rude boys. Yeah, I'm rude to people who make stuff up because I'm passionate about this subject, because I see what happened to the 9/11 truth movement. I see what people like Barbara Honegger did to people like David Chandler, another hero of yours. Alienated him and Wayne Costi and Ken Jenkins while you sat by and did nothing. I stuck up for them, and I'll continue to do it. And it's all over the Pentagon. Well, I'll stick with the evidence. I'll stick with the eyewitnesses over the likes of any of you in the war room, any of you. And I'll come out the winner. So will anybody else. Because we got the evidence on our side. You have nothing. And if Adam Eisenberg is the best you got, you're finished. If Craig McKee, Adam Ruff, Xander Arena, if that's the best you got nothing. that's who you're going to stick by, then you're going to be stuck doing YouTube for the rest of your life because you're not snipping a courtroom. Other law firms have no problem getting into court and being heard. Creedler and Creedler and Motley Rice, for example. Why isn't the Lawyers Committee getting it? I wonder why.
That area was retrofit. I believe it was renovated for if there was an attack or explosion or something. So that area was also renovated for an attack.
Mm-hmm.
It was renovated for a bomb explosion because Lee Evey, who was in charge of the Pentagon renovation project that started in 1996-97, they saw what happened to the Oklahoma City Murrah building when a Ryder truck drove in front of it and exploded the building. Now, of course, there's conspiracies about bombs being in the building, and I think that's true. Nevertheless, the renovation project for the Pentagon was fashioned to solidify the windows because a lot of people that were killed in the Oklahoma City bombing, as well as Khobar Towers and the embassy bombings in '98, a lot of the people were hit by shrapnel, glass, shredded the flesh and killed these people when they did the autopsies. So with the Pentagon, they wanted to reinforce the windows with blast-resistant windows. And on September 11, 2001, 60 Minutes actually came out later and did an episode, a special episode based on the renovation project. And they said that because those windows were blast-resistant, the second and third floor, fourth floor windows survived the plane impact. Not the first floor, of course. So it worked because there were people, workers doing the renovation inside Wedge 1 that were walking by those windows. There were people on the first floor just outside of the wings, like Brian Birdwell, they survived. Because they have blast-resistant windows.
I mean, there's so many things that keep our ears perked up for 9/11 Truth Hawaii to be involved with. And as parents, as citizens, as, you know, just searching for the truth. So listening to everyone's case, or, you know, their theories, their, you know, their outlook, their studies, is very important for us so we can piece it together. If we're gonna say there were planes or no planes, but to call for division, that's a red flag for us. And any of those that say, look at it my way, and if you don't look at it my way, then you're out.
No. And I know who you're referring to. You're referring to me and Ed and Nelson, right? We never said, look at it our way. Never said that. Quote me on it. I'll never say that. But I'm certainly not going to believe somebody who says a plane didn't crash there when the evidence, and I'm going by physical, eyewitness, and technical data that shows a plane certainly did. And if you don't like the answer, too bad, because you got your mind already made up. And I've read your comments in the Zoom meetings. Saudis, Apaches, no plane crash into the Pentagon. Yeah, I know what you're about. Okay? You don't like the fact that when someone like me is talking in the war room, when I used to come there and talk about a plane, 77, crashing in the Pentagon, because you already got your mind made up. You're not looking for the truth. I know that for a fact. You want to hear what you want to hear. And what I have to tell you, you don't want to hear. I don't care to win people over. I report the facts. if you think that anything, and that is a challenge to anybody in the war room, any one of you, if you could point out where I'm wrong, let me know. Because you know what I'll do that you won't do? I'll correct it. Because unlike you, I want to report the facts to the people. You don't want to do that.
You know, the ones that get rude, the ones that get mean, the ones that go, you know.
Yes, I'm rude to people who make stuff up. Absolutely, 100%, because I care. I care.
Just start attacking and calling names like
Right.
we're in high school or, you know, on the recess in elementary school. I don't know.
Kindergarten.
Yeah, kinder.
That's right. That's right. I will call Barbara Honegger names. And I now regret, I wish I should have just said even worse things to her. I hate her. She intentionally makes stuff up about this subject. Meanwhile, you sit there and say nothing. And you got the nerve to say that you're passionate about 9/11? What gall. Crocodile tears. Unbelievable that you would side for a person who makes stuff up instead of somebody like me who reports only the facts. And you'll say, I'm a disruptor. Meanwhile, I'm the one who's actually trying to save the reputation of the truth movement in the public eye while you just sit there and watch.
Kindergarten, there you go. Those are questionable. They are questionable to us. So anyway.
No, you are questionable. You're a victim. You're not like Barbara Honegger. You're a victim of Barbara Honegger, of Christopher Bowling, because I know you like bowling. You're a victim. So I don't hate you. I don't hate Jean. I don't hate Sandra. You're victims. I feel bad for you. But I don't hate you.
That's our stance. And I guess you could say we're more leaning towards explosives were planted and that whole area was retrofitted.
See, you would rather believe that the evidence is planted, that the eyewitnesses are lying over the simple fact of a plane crashing into the Pentagon, right? And you dare want to say that you are looking for the truth. The truth is right there in your face. You just don't like it because over the years, you were told to always oppose the official narrative.
For those explosives, and they're just not releasing the videos because they know.
They know? How do you know they know? How do you know that? Do you hear yourself? How do you know they're withholding video information? Just ask yourself that. Are the people who saw the plane crash into the building lying? Prove it. Then you have a case, and I'm with you. I'll be fully behind you. Prove it. Don't just say that they're lying like Adam Eisenberg. Anybody could sit in the armchair and play armchair quarterback. If this was a court of law and you basically said that the evidence was planted, you got to show evidence for that. Or else you'll get the April Gallop treatment and your case will be hit with a frivolous lawsuit and your lawyers will be fined. And you'll be maligned forever in the public eye.
We'll be able, well, you know, even if they do release the videos, the technology today, it looks like somebody is actually talking and
see, right? He gives himself out. oh, if the video does come out, I still can't believe it because they can manipulate the video. So that means no matter what, Chief, no matter what, everything from this point forward can't be trusted. So why are you in the 9/11 truth movement to begin with? If the cards are stacked against you like that, then all the evidence, everything can be manipulated or created by the government. What are you doing? What are you doing? Give up. You can't win a fight that's unwinnable. What, are you going to put a sticker on a mailbox? Write 9/11 and it's an inside job on your shoe? You call that activism?
And they're not really there.
Yeah, the deep.
They're not really talking. You know what I mean? I don't know the name of that tech.
They're calling deep. They call them deep fakes.
Yeah, it's crazy. So even when it is released, I think we're all gonna be like, "That's not real."
Yeah, of course, that's right. Because I asked Xander Arena that once in a Pentagon war room debate or discussion. It wasn't a debate, where I told him, I said, if video came out later and showed a plane hit the Pentagon, his answer was, if it's legitimate. Right, because no matter what, even if it's legitimate, you can always say, well, if it came from the government, that means it's not legitimate. You give yourself an out, right?
You know what I mean?
Right,
It's just
right.
they've waited so long. It's crazy.
Yeah. But can I just add to the fact, you mentioned the video evidence of a plane hitting the building. I mean, I think that if they had even one clip of a plane coming in, they would have played that over and over and over again, just like they did. And this was to add to the mass trauma of watching the planes hitting the towers, and they milked that for all it was worth. The media hyped up obviously the collapse of the towers with good reason. And it obviously happened, but they had the footage and they were absolutely going to use that footage to drive the fear and drive the propaganda and the whole invisible enemy that is the terrorist and all that stuff. If they had any footage of a plane hitting the Pentagon, there is no way they would be sitting on that.
Here we go. Here are two scenarios I want to play for you, Sandra. One, they don't have video. That's why they can't release it. Two, if they have video, why would they need to release it? Because if they did, more concentration would be paid attention to, okay, who is on these planes? Oh, wait a minute, two guys, Khalid al-Badr, Nawaf Azmi? Oh, wait a minute, the CIA knew about these guys that were in the country. Oh, wait a minute, they intentionally withheld information from the FBI and the State Department for 16 months regarding these. Why'd they do that? Oh, wait a minute. George Tenet, the director of the CIA, basically told his staff at the counterterrorism unit to go and ask the FBI about these two guys in photographs and don't tell them who they are, just to see if, to fish information from them about whether or not they know. And they lied about it in the 9/11 Commission and the Joint House, committing perjury on top of it. And not only that, you had Saudi contacts inside the United States who were paying for their month's rent and lied about it to the 9/11 Commission. Or they could allow for the video not to be released to the public so that these theories can cover up the cover up, and it would benefit them. Hey, guess what? It's working. It's working. Because here you are talking about no planes, no hijackers at the Pentagon. Therefore, what I just said about the real conspiracies are covered up. So, in other words, you're covering up for the State Department and the FBI and the CIA and the Saudis by propositioning these theories. So you're doing the work for them. So it would benefit them not to release the video and to keep these theories alive as long as it goes. Ha! Look at that. There's your theory. There it is. And that makes a lot of sense. Because even in the face of overwhelming evidence of the plane debris that was found, of the people who saw the plane crash to the Pentagon, you still don't believe it. You still don't believe it. And that's why they probably don't release the video, because the hell with you. That's why. That's why. And you wonder why the federal government does what it does to us. Because they hate us. Because what? We're ignorant? Probably. Look what they do abroad. You think they wouldn't do it here? So Sandra, think about that for a second.
And they gave us frames, and they know what they're doing. I mean, I went to college for animation. You know, for 1 second of film, it's like 24 frames that you got to draw. So, you know, I think some you can bump it up to 32, and you can go a little bit below that, but the average is 24 frames per second. They gave us like 5-7 frames, and people are writing on that with the FOIA. That's crazy. They can't have a fluid hit. They're not showing us a fluid.
I don't need video to know a plane crashed there. That's funny. Unless you're one of those people that think all the eyewitnesses are lying, like Adam Eisenberg.
Hit, and there's a reason for that. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
What's the reason?
Or we wouldn't be here. It's like the body cams on a police officer.
What's the reason, and why are you here? Why are you here? According to you, you're all about the truth. I know you're not. You want to hear what you want to hear. That's why you don't like me very much, because I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not going to stoop to the level of Barbara Honegger and Richard Gage. I don't do this for money. Richard Gage does. I don't lie to people. I don't make stuff up like Barbara Honegger does and like Adam Eisenberg does. I won't do that.
You know, why is that needed? We know why it's needed. There's a lot of corruption in our law enforcement. You know, we're human beings. There's a lot of people that are persuaded to be criminals. Doesn't matter what you're wearing, a badge or a suit. So body cams on police officers is, you know, the Pentagon is one of the most secure buildings in the
Las Vegas casinos are far more secure than a Pentagon. They have more cameras on one building, on one casino, than the entire Pentagon. Yeah, it's a surveilled building. But Wedge 1, let me give you a fact. Wedge 1 was under renovation. The cameras that are on top of the roof are not operational. They don't work because Wedge 1 was under construction.
the world. So, I mean, we're not dumb.
I'll skip that.
But yeah, so we want those body cam footage there, Mr. FBI.
Wait a minute. What do you want? You say you want footage, but on the other hand, you're saying, well, the footage could be manipulated, so I can't trust it. You don't even know what you want. You're like Eisenberg, who doesn't even know what he's saying half the time. You don't even know what you want. The only thing you want is what you want to hear. You want to hear that the planes are actually drones made to look like military, made to look like commercial airliners. You want to hear that there were no hijackers, and you want to hear that the deep state, whatever that is, was involved with the planning and orchestrating of September 11, 2001, so they could go to war with Iraq and Afghanistan and whatnot. And so that George Bush or Donald Rumsfeld and Benjamin Netanyahu are the only ones guilty, Larry Silverstein too, put them in jail because they're the ones who orchestrated 9/11. That's what you want to hear. That's a simple view of 9/11. So simple, it belongs in Dr. Seuss books. The reality, Chief and Sandra and Gene, is that 9/11 is amazingly and intricately complex. It is. I can't simplify it for you. I'm sorry. Doesn't work that way. That's why you stay at ground zero. And that's why you don't entertain the Pentagon or Shanksville, because it's such a divisive issue, because you're most likely afraid of getting the David Chandler treatment. Because, Gene, this is what I think regarding you at the Pentagon. Same thing for Sandra, is that I think that if you actually say that, hey, wait a minute, I was wrong, Flight 77 did crash into the Pentagon, that everybody in your circle will turn on you, call you a shill, don't trust you anymore, and won't commiserate with you. You'll be left alone, basically. And your reputation will be ruined in that fringe movement circle forever. Because that's what they did to David Chandler. That's what Barbara Honegger and Craig McKee did to David Chandler and Wayne Costi and Ken Jenkins. And Sandra is friends with Craig McKee. Should tell you about her level of friends. Why would you be friends with somebody like that, who spent 10 years of his life writing hit pieces and having people threaten David Chandler for 10 years? Barbara Honegger too. But yet you defend her, and you call me a rude boy. You called me, he's a very angry person. He's morally repugnant, I guess, right? Because I said every nasty word to her in email. And I'll say it again. And this time I'll say worse, because that's what she deserves. But when she basically was one of the primary reasons for David Chandler, Wayne Costi to be vilified in the 9/11 truth movement, you decided to ignore that and respect her. But you won't respect me for calling her out and for calling her names when she did that to David Chandler for 10 years. Maybe she didn't use the language I did, but certainly in Craig McKee's circle, they did with him.
Thanks, Gil.
Withholding of evidence. That is a big tell.
Yeah.
The fact that we've got our government trying to fight against our First Amendment right to petition a government for a redress of grievances, and they're fighting, no, you can't let the grand jury hear this evidence. Like, that's got to be the tell. Like, come on, like
Right.
I don't know.
And plus, that got us into war too. So I mean, that was their key.
Yep. Thank you. Back to you, Adam, and then Miles.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I thought he was going to be making an appearance, but Xander Arena has been doing some fantastic work in the category of the video, debunking the videos.
He didn't debunk the security video at the Pentagon. No, he didn't. And Ed Brotherton proved this when you had a war room discussion between Ed and Xander Arena, and it came away that Xander Arena had no idea what he was talking about. Didn't know that there were other camera frames that existed. Again, you are making stuff up.
if you guys have had a chance to see that. I know Richard Gage, I believe his YouTube might have been taken down. I think the presentation might have been up there. I know there are copies still available, so I'm sure they're going to be getting those back up.
Well, he
But
gave the whole presentation on the last month's War Room call, so it's all, you can see it all
yeah,
there.
yeah, and check it out there too. Thank you for bringing that up. So I just want to make sure everybody knew about it.
Thank God it's over. Wow. Fun ride. But that's my message to you, Sandra and Jean. I don't hate you. I don't think I could ever hate Jean because, like I said, there's a part of me that's still, even after saying that I'm rude and he's blocking me everywhere, fine. I'm not mad at you over that. I'm disappointed in the simple fact that you'll believe the more fantastical theories of 9/11 pertaining to the Pentagon over the actual evidence. That you'll have people like Adam Eisenberg, Lawrence Fine, Xander Arena, but you don't care for me or Ed to come into the room. You called Sean Russell a rude boy. Sean Russell has never said one nasty word to you. Ed and Sean should be left off. Myself, Nelson, and Darren, yeah, we've been rude to you. You've been rude to us too. But at least you acknowledge that. I'll give you that much. But I'll be damn sure, Gene, if I cow down to Barbara Honegger or the Lawyers Committee, I have standards, brother. I'm not standing by people that hurt the truth movement when they make stuff up. Richard Gage, I know you respect the heck out of this guy. He makes stuff up. I'm sorry, Gene. Yes, he does. He would rather interview people who make stuff up. And by doing that, he is actually hurting the truth movement in the public eye. But you would rather ignore that and say at least he's on our side. What side are you on? Do you realize what these people are doing to the truth movement by propagating these theories? Why didn't you challenge Adam Eisenberg in the war room? Say, hey, wait a minute. This didn't make sense. Can you explain that to me? Or wait a minute, how do you know this? No, you let him run unabashed, making so many statements. I know you said too in the video that I didn't show here that you wanted to see one day Craig McKee's group, David Chandler's group, and us, right? The Rude Boys, right? Whatever you call us. I'm not here for show. The hell with Craig McKee or Barbara Honegger or Richard, any of those people. Hell with them. I'll talk to David Chandler. Like I said, I'll talk to Craig McKee, but debate all that stuff for your entertainment? No. See, Craig McKee, even he said that I would rather not be in a room with Adam Fitzgerald, right? But I could be in a room with him. I could talk to him. It wouldn't last 5 minutes because he doesn't know what he's talking about. He knows nothing of 9/11, nothing, not a thing. He's not an authority in any aspect of 9/11. Neither is Adam Ruff. Neither is Barbara Honegger, for that matter. None of those people that you would rather talk to and admire, some of them, respect, none of those people know what they're talking about. And if the only thing you have against me is my rudeness, well, then I'll take that as a badge of honor, because you never said once where I was wrong about 9/11. Not once. Now, I'll never consider myself an expert or an authority figure. I never said that. I'm a student of this affair. But I'm not your show toy. If you are serious about having a serious discussion between me or Barbara Honegger or Craig McKee, set it up. Set it up. I won't call them names. I don't need to. In the email, I gave Barbara Honegger every chance to address her statements. And basically, she kept saying, no, that's not true. You're lying. You're taking me out of context. Meanwhile, I could show her easily where she's wrong, and she'll continue to protect her own falsehoods. So yes, I responded in a very nasty manner, disgusting manner. But she deserves every word of it. Imagine Barbara Honegger going up to a victim's family member at the Pentagon and saying, by the way, your loved one wasn't killed at the impact of Flight 77. In fact, we don't know what happened to her, but we think that the planes were swapped and the American military or the Israeli military killed her in some airline hangar. Oh, and if she left a message for you, that phone call was faked. And you might be in on it. Guess what's going to happen? If it's a guy, he's going to punch her in the face. If it's a woman, she'll probably slap her. But you'll take offense at me calling her every nasty name in the book. Need I remind you what you used to say to me and Darren Harvey? I still got the screenshots. And you call yourself a Christian. Well, in Christianity, you can be afforded for always having to be forgiven for your sins. I just try to not do it again. I have nobody to appease. I'm an atheist. I don't need to please somebody in the sky. Now, I'm not going to degrade you for believing in God. That's fine. It's not about your faith. But it is about your hypocrisy regarding certain people and how they act. But I hope you get to watch the video. I want you to see how Adam Eisenberg is making stuff up and why I have to say that you are defending the wrong people. Barbara Honegger is the wrong people. She's the enemy to the truth movement because nothing she says about 9/11 is truth. She makes stuff up. And Richard Gage advocates for that. You're going to have to question, and this is going to be a bitter pill to swallow, regarding who you follow in the truth movement. Either you're for the truth or you're not. There is no in between. None. And if I have to be alone in this fight, I will be. Because I will never, ever, ever work with, be friendly with, or even commiserate with people who make stuff up about 9/11. I won't do it. Like I said, I got standards. I won't do it. but you will. Reevaluate. What's more important, appeasing like-minded people in the group that you commiserate with? Or are you really about the truth?